x minus 3 squared plus y minus 4 squared equals 1. Do you remember these kinds of equations from our last two videos? We learned that this is the standard equation of a circle. We see immediately that the center of the circle is 3, 4. And the radius is 1, right? But what if we have the general form of a circle, like, for example, negative 16y plus 2x squared plus 48 minus 12x plus 2y squared equals 0. If that's the case, we can't see the coordinates of the center and the radius of the circle like we did easily in the standard form. So there is no shortcut than to rewrite the general form into standard form, which we do by completing the square. Let me show you how. Before we start, let me put the terms in the right order by grouping the x terms together, the y terms together, and by putting the constant term to the right hand side of the equation. So we get 2x squared minus 12x plus 2y squared minus 16y equals negative 48. Let's do one more pre-step before we start and divide the whole equation by 2 to remove the coefficient 2 in front of x squared and y squared. So the 2's cancel each other out. 12 divided by 2 is 6. 16 divided by 2 is 8. And 48 divided by 2 is 24. Let me write this line again, but with leaving blanks after the x terms and after the y terms. So we can write x squared minus 6x plus y squared minus 8y equals negative 24. Now it's getting interesting. We are going to do what we call completing the square. This is important, so stay focused and memorize this. By the way, I highly recommend to watch one of my previous videos called Completing the Square. In equations for circles, we complete the square for the x group and for the y group, respectively. Let's start with the x group. We add the squared half of the coefficient of x and write it in this empty space. That's why we prepared this empty space. Again, we add the squared half of the coefficient of x. Let's do that step by step. What is the half of the coefficient of x? The half of negative 6 is negative 3. And negative 3 squared is 9. So we write the 9 in this empty spot. Now we do the same with the coefficient of y. Feel free to pause the video and try this yourself. So negative 8 divided by 2 is negative 4. And negative 4 squared is 16. So we write the 16 in this empty spot. Recall that when we add something on one side of an equation, we also have to add it to the other side of the equation. So let's add 9 and 16 also to the other side. Let's combine negative 24, 9 and 16 before we move on. So 9 plus 16 is 25 and 25 minus 24 is 1. What do we have on the left hand side? We have two perfect square trinomials, which is what we wanted. The next step is to write these two perfect square trinomials as perfect square binomials. How do we do that? That's simple. The perfect square binomial has always the form x minus or plus something squared. The plus or minus depends on the sign of the coefficient of x or y. Now we again have an empty space, which is just half of the coefficient of x and y. So the half of negative 6 is negative 3. So we write a negative 3 here. And the half of negative 8 is negative 4. So we write a negative 4 here. So we get x minus 3 squared plus y minus 4 squared equals 1, which looks like the standard form of a circle which we wanted. Now we see immediately that the center of the circle is 3, 4 and the radius is 1, which we didn't see before when we had the general form. When you see this, it looks complicated, but let's do some more examples in the next video so you get used to it. Let's do a quick recap. Let's say we did all the preparations, such as combining like terms, grouping the x squared terms and the x terms, and grouping the y squared terms and the y terms, and bringing the constant term to the right hand side. Completing the square is simple. The only difference to my video completing the square is that we have to complete the square here with two terms. The term with the x's and the term with the y's. Basically, completing the square is two steps. First, we take half of the coefficient, square it and add it to the empty space. And to the right hand side of the equation. Second, we can then write the perfect square trinomial as a perfect square binomial. Which always looks like x or y plus or minus something squared. The something is just half of the coefficient. That's it, and we get the standard equation of a circle, where we immediately see the coordinates of the center of the circle and the radius. If you have any questions, feel free to ask me in the comments. This video is what I did for you. If you want to do something for me, hit the bell button, like, share and subscribe. Thanks for watching and happy learning, everyone.